Hi everyone, welcome back to the Crocheted Caution Tape, where we discuss true crime, spookies, mysteries, dark bits of history, and legends. Part of the spookies. I am Erica, and if you enjoy any of the creepiness, the darkness, and you like to crochet, please stick around. Hit that like button. Subscribe! Today, we are going to talk about the Bunny Man. The Bunny Man of Virginia. The Bunny Man is said to be a man dressed like a bunny who haunts residential areas in Virginia and Maryland. Now, he mostly appears in secluded areas. The figure in a white bunny suit, armed with an axe most of the time, threatens children, vandalizes property. By the 1980s, Bunny Man was credited with several murders. Been spotted as far south as Culpeper, Virginia, but his main area of haunt is around a railroad overpass near Fairfax Station, Virginia. This bridge is now known as the Bunny Man Bridge. The legend of the Bunny Man is primarily told by teenagers as a way to set a scary, spooky mood. Like all urban legends, the story has evolved several times over the years, kind of like the game of telephone, where you tell somebody one thing and then they tell their version of what you said and then they tell their version of what was said, and it just evolves constantly. So, the first sighting was in the early 1970s, and by 1976, Bunny Man was responsible for the deaths of two naughty children in the Clifton area. Way to scare your kids into being good. There were rumors of children going missing in the area, and then rumors of animals found mutilated near the bridge. Primarily bunnies. The Clifton Bunny Man. Now, there was a website made in the 1990s by a man named Timothy C. Forbes called Castle of Spirits, and he discusses the Bunny Man in one of his stories on this website. He claims that 1904 inmates from an insane asylum escaped while being transported to Lorton Prison. These escaped inmates were Douglas J. Griffin, murdered escape partner Marcus Walster, and now Griffin became the Bunny Man. Names of victims and dates of the murders were listed. However, there are lots of holes in Forbes' story that makes this very much not possible. There was never an asylum in Fairfax County, and Lorton Prison didn't exist before 1910, so how did the inmates escape from an asylum that doesn't exist on the transport to a prison that does not yet exist. And Griffin and Webster, they don't appear in Fairfax County records. So, yeah, sorry, Forbes, you are incorrect about the origin of Bunnyman. Bunnyman Bridge was actually featured on The Scariest Places on Earth. That was a very popular show in the early 2000s. I loved that show. Watched it every week. It's great. There was a segment on the scariest places on Earth titled Terror on Bunnyman's Bridge in 2001. You have access to watch it? Watch it. This show was amazing. Although the legends often contain false or exaggerated information, most legends have a basis in factual events. Something really did happen that caused the legend to form. So, what happened to make the Bunnyman legend appear? Fairfax County Public Library Historical Newspaper Index volunteers Malcolm Richardson and Barbara Welch spent 10 years. Oh, I messed up somewhere big there. Let's start that one over. Compiling a complete list of all of the local Fairfax County newspapers with all of the murders and killings that were reported between 1872 and 1973. There were over 550 different murders reported over that 100-year span of research. Now, removing all of the run-of-the-mill, don't know what that would be, but run-of-the-mill domestic murders lowered the list of over 550 to 3. 3 possible stories that some started to think that were the Bunnyman, that the Bunnyman was responsible for it, but ended up not being. But let's dive into these stories that some originally thought had something to do with the Bunnyman. Francis and June Holliver in February of 1949. Frances was 37 years old and June was her 8-month-old daughter. On Thursday, February 24th, 1949, the two drove to Fairfax County with Frances's estranged husband, Charles. All 3 lived in the District of Columbia. Charles told police that they had come to a new lodge at a nudist colony that Charles was part of. Their car got stuck in some mud when leaving the lodge. Frances and Charles argued, as estranged spouses often do. And at the end of the argument, Frances grabbed June and they walked away and never returned. The car got stuck in Northern Virginia. In February, and she just grabs her kid and goes off somewhere. Charles spent the night in the car, didn't bother to go search for Frances or June, and he got a ride back to Washington the next day. Charles, his brother-in-law, and a friend went back to get the car. They found no trace of Frances and June. that's when they finally notified the police. Fairfax County Police, Washington detectives, and the Boy Scouts organized a search of the area. By 5 p.m., the searchers were about to call it a night. It was getting dark. February gets dark early. Until a detective stood on a soft patch of ground. Again, February, ground's not soft unless it has been dug. Cold, ground's hard. Francis and June were both found in a shallow grave right next to the lodge, only 200 yards from where the car was stuck. So Francis and June were murdered and buried in a shallow grave just 200 yards from where Charles was sleeping. Uh, Francis had been beaten and shot once in the head. Now, poor June, she had been buried alive. Charles would later confess that he had been planning the murders of his wife and his daughter for 3 weeks. He had not planned to report the disappearances, but the car getting stuck in the mud made him change his mind. He expected to just be like, oh, I don't know where they went. They just went away. The case went to trial in January 16th in 1950. The defense was insanity. You can't file insanity if you planned the murders. You have intent to murder. You can't claim insanity. So Forrest, his verdict was guilty, and he was sentenced to death by the electric chair. The Virginia Supreme Court overturned the conviction, and Charles was recommitted to the Western States Mental Hospital at Marion, Virginia, where there he was deemed insane. Okay. The next story that some thought were part of the Bunny Man legend was the death of the case of Minnie, Loretta, and Catherine Ridgway in March of 1927. It was Minnie and her 2 daughters. The morning of March 4th, 1927, Louis Borsig went to the home asking for Mr. Ridgway. Minnie let him know that he was at home. As soon as he found out that the husband was not home, Borsig attacked and beat Minnie into unconsciousness. Odie. He then beat Loretta, who was 7, and Catherine, who was 8. He stole the money that was in the home and fled. The neighbors heard the moans coming from the house, and they found Minnie, Loretta, and Catherine. They were all still alive. All 3 were taken to Alexandria Hospital. Loretta would sadly and unfortunately pass later that day. Catherine, she lived for another 8 days before succumbing to her injuries. Minnie, however, recovered. I could not imagine the survivor's guilt that Minnie had. It would be awful. But since she recovered, she was able to identify Louis Borsig Forsyth was later arrested and transferred to the jail in Winchester for his safety. Forsyth was executed for the murders of Loretta and Catherine on July 7th, 1927. 3 months after the crime. That was a fast trial. And a fast. It was a very short time on death row. Okay. The final story that we're going to discuss that some thought may have been contributed to the Bunny Man legend was the story of Ava Roy in August of 1918. The morning of August 4th, 1918, Ava Roy, who was 14, went to tend to her father's cows. Her father organized a search when she did not return home by evening. The neighbors were involved in the search. Everybody was involved trying to find Ava. Around 24 hours later, Ava was found. She was found tied to a tree in the woods near the old Hancy house. Her apron strings were tied around her neck. She had been brutally assaulted before being strangled. Several suspects were interviewed and released. Ben Rubin is an escaped inmate from Lorton Prison that had been built 8 years prior, or had opened 8 years prior, was arrested on September 19th in Washington, D.C. for assaulting another little girl. When arrested, he confessed to Ava's murder very willingly. Rubin said he met Ava looking after her father's cows. He asked her for food, and in conversation with her, he told her he was an ex-convict. She declared, brave little Ava, she would turn him up, and he became excited and choked her. Rubin was unable to take investigators to the crime scene. Then he admitted he made it all up because he wanted to be transferred to Fairfax, where he thought escaping would be easier since he had escaped before. The murderer was never found. After diving more into these 3 stories, it was determined that none of the 3 gave any insight to the Bunny Man. The Bunny Man was mentioned in newspaper articles, sightings of him, his terror. The Washington Post from October 1970 even reported on the Bunny Man. Air Force Academy cadet Robert Bennett told police that he and his fiancée were sitting in a car on the 5400 block of Guinea Road when a man dressed in a white bunny suit with long bunny ears ran from nearby bushes, shouting, "You're on private property, and I have your tag number." The man then threw a wooden handle hatchet. My goodness, I keep missing this one. I don't know why. The man then threw a wooden handle hatchet through the right front car window, and then skipped off in the night as bunnies do. The The Bunnyman appeared again 2 weeks later on Guinea Road in Fairfax. This time he had an axe and was chopping away at a roof support on a new house. Both times he was claiming others were trespassing. These two instances are likely the origin of the Bunnyman legend. There are rumors of the Bunnyman on the Bunnyman Bridge, dressed in his white bunny suit that just hung around the bunny bridge and killed all the bunnies that he found in the area. There was like a string of dead bunnies in the area. The Bunnyman has also influenced um, pop culture in creating movies. There are several movies that are titled Bunnyman, and some even say that the Bunnyman legend was the basis for the Bunny and Donnie Darko. If you haven't watched Donnie Darko, you should definitely go watch Donnie Darko. It's fantastic. And the Bunnyman in Donnie Darko is quite scary. I did it again. What am I doing? No. Bunnyman spirals all the way from the Fairfax Station Railroad Bridge all the way to Hollywood. Get the writers going. Some movies came out. And that, my friends, is the story of the Bunnyman. If you enjoyed listening to this legend, and you'd like to hear more on other legends, other spookies, other true crime, and dark history, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If you have anybody that you think would enjoy discussing true crime and dark history and the spookies of the world, and they like crocheting, please share it with them. Comment down below. I will comment back. If you have any suggestions for other stories, I do have a list that I keep adding to. So please give me some more ideas, and we will dig into them together. Thank you for joining me today as we discuss the Bunnyman. And I will be seeing you guys later.